Yeah.
Well, as you may remember, Paul, the shack actually gave language to a great sadness I was struggling with when I first read the book in 2008. And you found a way through your story to touch parts of my heart and soul where I needed healing and understanding and permission to grieve and suffer
Yeah.
and grieve the loss and pain that I was going through. And I'm so thankful for that. Um, as the world prepares to see your story on the big screen, I was hoping you could explain something to me and to all those who might be watching, something you told me when we first met. And that was there was a lot of controversy around the book, but there was a group of people that loved your story, loved your presence. And those were people who were fighting addiction and in recovery. Why do you think that was and is?
Because they have less to lose and because they're desperate enough. That was my situation. They have less impediment. Once you realize that you cannot do the religious thing, you don't have the capacity to do it, then you're open to all kinds of conversation. And your tendency to hear things that are helpful are incredibly strong. I think the Holy Spirit was poured out on all flesh. And it's religious ideology that keeps us from trusting our own ability to hear for ourselves. I just think the wounded and the hurt and people broken like me have a capacity to be open that a lot of folks who are still stuck in the prisons of their own religiosity or ideology, which is largely fear-based, they cannot perceive. I was a few weeks ago, a month ago now, I spent an afternoon with a man who has been on death row for 30 years and a friend of his on death row for, actually, Terry has been on death row 33 years and Ron for 30 years. And I was there partly because Terry had been so hammered by the shack. It had had such a massive influence in him and had started this whole awakening for him. And here I am on death row the day after that he had his final hearing. So right now he is waiting to find out whether he has an execution date or not. And he fully owns his stuff. And we talk about living in the grace of the day. We just had the most incredible conversation. And at one point I said to him, you do realize that all those people out there have prisons, they just can't see them. And I said, you two are two of the freest people I've ever met. And it's true. And here they are. They're locked away. Yes, they did horrendous things way back in the day, but they own them. I mean, they own them. We talked about it. And at one point, Terry says, you know what we dream about? What Ron and I talk about and dream about? And I said, what? He said, what it must be like to walk on grass. I haven't walked on grass for 33 years. And Ron says, one night we got left out in the yard, which is all concrete and gravel. But the guards forgot about us. And I say to Terry, do you think we should tell them? And Terry says, nah, they'll figure it out. And he said, we were out there in first time in decades to watch the stars come out. He said, and they start to cry. The most beautiful thing we've ever seen. It was an open night. And I'm sitting there going like, there is a receptivity here to stuff that we just run our way past and that we take for granted and that we don't see because they have to deal with the prisons that they are inside of every single day.